Tide pools are a very accessible way that anybody can have access to the ocean. You don't need any special training or any special equipment to explore tide pools. So today I want to show you some of the different animals and some of the different zones in the tide pools. But before you can go out tide pooling yourself, there's a little bit of homework you need to do. First, you'll need to reference a tide chart like this one. Tides go up and down throughout the day. There are high tides and low tides. During high tide, most of the beach is covered in water, and during low tide, a lot of it is exposed. So you want to look for a day where there's a really good low tide to go out tide pooling. In terms of equipment to take, we'll want some good closed-toed shoes with good grip on the bottom that can get wet. We'll also want some sunscreen, and make sure to get the backs of your ears, back of your neck, because you'll be looking down. Don't take your cat with you, mine just wanted to be in the picture. And also you may want a light jacket because it might get a little cold out there. So now we're ready to head down to the beach.
Good morning. I say good morning because it's currently 7 a.m., which is when low tide is today. And I wanted to take you through the 4 zones of the intertidal today and show you some of the different animals that live in there, so that hopefully when you can get outside and you can go tide pooling again, you can know where to go to find what you're looking for. So we'll go through the different stages or the different zones of the intertidal, and then I'll actually take you there and we'll look at some of the different animals that live there. So the first is the spray zone, which is the furthest away from the ocean. It's right behind me there. It's the part that gets probably the least amount of water in a day. Sometimes it'll just even get spray. It won't even get submerged in water. Then there's the upper intertidal zone, the mid intertidal zone, and the lower intertidal zone. And all of these are named based on how much time they spend out of the water versus how much time they spend covered in water. The upper intertidal zone spends the least amount of time covered in water, and the lower intertidal spends the most time covered in water, which means that the animals that live in the lower intertidal are things that don't really have to worry about temperature stress, about oxygen stress. They have enough to breathe, right? So I'll take you through the different zones, talk you through what we're seeing, and hopefully we'll find something really cool today. So this whole area, even like up on the cliffs, sometimes just gets spray of water. This means that maybe some hardy algae live here. Maybe sometimes we'll find animals. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, we have some barnacles here. Barnacles are the animals that you'll see living on whales a lot of the time. But they're pretty hardy, right? They have a shell, and they can stay inside of that shell. They have a feeding structure that comes out, but if they're out of water for a long time, right, they can stay within that shell and not get super stressed out. We also have some small limpets here. Limpets are basically just a type of snail, but again, they're covered in a shell. So if things get really stressful, if there isn't a lot of water, they can stay within that shell. So that's pretty cool. So in the upper intertidal zone, you'll probably see some animals that you recognize from typical tide pools. So we still have a lot of barnacles and a lot of limpets like we saw in the spray zone. But we also sometimes will see crabs down here. We also see a lot of different types of limpets, suggesting that maybe it's a better habitat for some other species. Here's a mussel. Now something interesting that I want to point out in this area is that previously in the upper intertidal we saw some barnacles, actually just like these, that are super flat and not very big. But here when we're in the upper intertidal, we are seeing some bigger barnacles, so things that have a bit more surface area and are more at risk of potentially drying out if they don't get enough water. And these are characteristic of the upper intertidal. These are called gooseneck barnacles. Within the gooseneck barnacles, we also have some mussels, which are maybe something you've eaten in seafood dishes before. They're bivalves, like clams, so they have 2 shells, and they're pretty cool. They're filter feeders, but yeah, related to snails distantly, so that's pretty cool. In this hole, let's see if I can show you. Oh, he's hiding. There is a crab. So even crabs can live out of water for some time, and this guy lives in the upper intertidal. I hope you can see him moving around a little bit. Oh, he's coming out. Hello. So yeah, we definitely have more different types of animals here, and we've only moved, 15 feet, because we were over there on that cliff. Now we're on this rock, but we're still pretty far away from the ocean. This is how far away we are from the ocean still, so we still have a long way to go, but these animals here are thriving. They're doing really well. So let's see what we can find a little bit lower. I think we need to be really careful of when we start to get into the mid and lower intertidal especially, is that there are actually animals everywhere. So we want to keep our eyes out and make sure we're not stepping on anything. For example, there are a bunch of anemones hiding here. That one just moved. Here's one. Oop. So even though they're covered in shells and sand, they are alive. They're animals. And of course, they go through a lot of stress every day. They are crashed on by waves, so probably stepping on them isn't the end of the world, but definitely try to avoid it because we obviously don't want to harm any animals while we're out here. All right, so now that we're in the mid intertidal, you'll notice that there are a lot more standing pools of water. There's a lot more algae, and as we're gonna find, there are more different types of animals. So these tide pools are covered in seagrass right now, and seagrass is a super important habitat for a lot of different animals because as water moves through it, it slows water down. So for example, if you're on a coast that has a lot of really big waves, inside the seagrass, the waves aren't going to be as strong. It can actually help protect coastlines against big storms and big waves, so it's really important for humans as well. But sometimes you'll find like baby fish swimming through it because it's a good, safe habitat for them to grow up in. We also have a lot of hermit crabs down here. This is one. So hermit crabs are cool. They're obviously a type of crab, but they use the shells from other animals. So this guy is in an olive snail shell, but once the snail passes away, the shell is free, unless, beachcombers take it. So the hermit crabs use it as a home, as protection. That's why it's important, or at least one of the reasons why it's important to leave shells on the beach, because hermit crabs can use them. So anemones are soft-bodied animals. They're related to corals and to jellyfish. We have another hermit crab right here with a slipper shell on its back. So that's another kind of type of snail animal. And it's okay to gently push the eelgrass or seagrass aside, but remember, it is an important habitat. It's something we don't want to destroy. I haven't seen any sea slugs out yet today, so I think what we should do is head to the lower intertidal and take a look. So sometimes in the mid intertidal, we'll find sea slugs, we'll find sea stars, but the best place to find them is actually in the lower intertidal. That's where they prefer to live. They don't really like being out of water very much, so we'll move down to the lower intertidal. But something I want to point out as we move down there is that the lower intertidal, like I mentioned, is mostly underwater. So we're gonna see a lot of different types of kelp or seaweed as we move down. So let's go. Another thing to be mindful of is low tide has actually passed. So we wanna be really careful and make sure we keep our eyes on the waves because things will start coming closer to us and we don't wanna get washed away. So here's an example of kelp or seaweed like I was just talking about. It's really long. This species specifically is called Macrocystis pyrifera. It's the common name is giant kelp, so it is really big. It can grow really fast, and it's an important ingredient in ice cream, in toothpaste, and all sorts of different things that you use. So I just spotted our first sea slug of the day, and I want us to take a look together. I haven't identified it yet or anything. So, oh, beautiful. Oop. This is a Hilton's aeolid. It's a type of nudibranch, so those little frilly things on the back, that's how it breathes. It's a soft-bodied slug, has no bones, and it uses those things up front to smell or taste the water to see where its food is. Here's another type of sea slug. This is a Hermicenda sea slug. Again, another nudibranch with the naked gills or naked lungs on the back of its body. So like I mentioned, giant kelp can grow a lot in one day. That one starts over there. Straight away, I see another Hermit sea slug. These do sting, and they can sting people. So I don't recommend trying to pick them up, trying to touch them, especially if you're not a trained animal biologist. I've been stung by them. It's not fun. Don't recommend it. If there are certain animals you want to look for when you're out tide pooling, I'd recommend, if you can't find them automatically, to look for their food. For example, I know that this kind of reddish color in here is actually a type of animal called a Bryozoan, and it is the food of my favorite sea slug, the Hopkins rose. So there isn't one here, but it would be interesting to bet that there would probably be a Hopkins rose on there. So this is called feather boa kelp. It kind of looks like a feather boa. But on this piece you can actually see there's a limpet right there, or one of those snails with a flat shell. You can see where it's eaten on the feather boa kelp. So it licks with its scraping tongue, kind of like a cat tongue. It licks away at the algae and breaks it down and eats it. We are truly in the lower intertidal now because everything is still connected to the ocean, which means that it's super cold down here.
So I had to do a voiceover here because somebody was yelling at their dog, but this is an animal called a boring clam, not because they're not fun to have over, but because they bore or drill into rocks, forming these circular patterns. You can see their siphons coming out. That's the orangish, reddish color, and they stay in the rock forever. They're super cool. Some of their shells are there too. Awesome animals. I really hope you enjoyed this time in the intertidal with me. It's so much fun to get out here, and while I wish I could take all of you with me, I know that that's not doable right now with COVID and just everything happening in our world, but I hope that this brought a ray of sunshine to your day.